The alien city was cold, dark, and full of noise. Metal towers climbed into the sky, blinking with dim blue lights. But far below, in a forgotten street that even locals feared, a small alien girl named Leary sat alone on the ground. Her tiny arms wrapped around her legs, and her long ears shook each time a cold wind passed. She had been left here, left by the same people who were supposed to love her, earlier that evening. Leary had tried to follow her family home. She walked behind them, her steps slow because her legs were weak. Her mother looked back once, then turned away. Her father said she was too slow, too sick, and too much trouble. Her older brother told her to stop following. Then they turned a corner and never came back. Leary waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes. She kept hoping they would return and say it was a mistake. But the only things that returned were the cold wind and the sound of metal gates slamming shut in the distance, her small glowing eyes filled with tears. She whispered to herself, "Maybe they will come for me." But deep inside, she knew the truth, they never would. The street around her grew darker as a flickering street lamp above her buzzed and dimmed. Strange shapes moved at the far end of the alley, large claws dragging on the ground, heavy footsteps scraping against metal, and deep breaths echoing through the night. Leary pulled her thin coat tighter around her body. She had heard terrifying stories about creatures that hunted in the lower districts at night, creatures that waited for easy targets. Like abandoned children, her body froze when she heard something growl. She did not dare look. She did not dare breathe too loudly. She pressed her small hand over her mouth so her sobs would not escape. The shadows got closer. A sharp metallic sound echoed like claws tapping on steel. Leary slowly turned her head, and her heart dropped. Something tall was moving toward her, its shape twisted, its body hunched, its eyes reflecting the dim light like knives. Her tiny voice cracked. Please. Someone, help." The creature stepped closer, but then another sound entered the alley. Footsteps. Calm, steady. Human footsteps. A light appeared from the left side of the narrow street, a soft white glow that cut through the darkness. A human man named Jonas walked in, holding a small hand torch. He had been on his way to a nearby marketplace when he heard crying. Many people ignored such sounds in this part of the city, but Jonas was not like them. Curiosity and concern pushed him forward. When his light landed on the small alien girl, he paused. Leary, covered in dust and shaking like a leaf, looked at him with wide eyes full of fear. Jonas felt a shock in his chest. She could not be more than 7 or 8 years old. "What are you doing alone here?" He whispered. I did not answer. She only stared at him, and then looked behind her with terror. Jonas followed her gaze, just in time to see the creature step out of the darkness. Its claws were long, its breath heavy, its eyes locked on the girl. The creature lowered its head, ready to attack. Jonas did not think. He did not plan. He simply moved. He stepped between Leary and the creature, raising his arm and shining the torch straight at the beast. The creature hissed, its skin curling away from the light. Jonas grabbed a nearby metal rod, ready to defend the girl even though he had never seen such a creature before. "Stay behind me," he whispered to her. Leary's hands shook. She could not understand why a stranger, a human, would protect her when even her own family did. Not. The creature growled again and prepared to strike. Jonas tightened his grip. The abandoned girl's fate rested in the hands of a man she had never met. The creature's roar shook the narrow alley, but Jonas did not move back. He held the metal rod tightly in one hand and the torch in the other. His heart raced, but he kept his body between Leary and the danger. The girl pressed herself against the cold wall, shaking so much that Jonas could hear her teeth click. The creature stepped forward again, but it did not like the human's bright light. Its claws scraped the floor, making a sharp sound. Jonas realized the creature feared the torch, so he lifted it higher and waved it slowly. The beast hissed and backed away, its glowing eyes fixed on the human. "Go," Jonas said softly but firmly. "Go back." The creature growled one last time, then slipped into the darkness and disappeared between broken metal doors. A long silence followed. Jonas slowly lowered the torch. His breathing was heavy. His hands shook a little, but he tried to hide it. Then he turned to the small alien girl who still stood frozen, her arms wrapped around herself. "You're safe now," he said gently, but Leary did not move. She expected him to walk away at any moment. Nobody ever stayed for her. Nobody ever helped her twice. So she stared at the human with confused, frightened eyes. Jonas took one slow step toward her. "Are you hurt?" Leary took one step back. Her voice shook as she whispered, You do not need to help me. I do not matter." Jonas frowned at those words. "Who told you that?" "My family," she said quietly. "Every day." Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them with her sleeve as if she was not allowed to cry. Jonas's heart tightened. He crouched down so he was at her eye level. "Listen, you matter. You're a child. No child deserves to be left alone in a place like this." Leary looked at him, unsure if she should believe him. Jonas held out his hand. "Let me help you. Just until you're safe." Leary stared at his hand as if it was something dangerous. She had never seen a hand offered with kindness before. She had only seen hands push her away. She whispered, If I come with you, will you leave me later too?" Jonas's eyes softened. "No, I won't leave you in the dark. Not tonight. Not ever like this." Leary slowly reached out her tiny hand. It shook as it touched his. Jonas closed his fingers gently around hers, not tight, not forceful, just warm and safe. The moment their hands connected, Leary's shoulders dropped a little, and some of her fear melted away. Jonas stood up and placed his coat around her shaking body. She looked small inside it, almost disappearing under the thick fabric. "Come on," he said softly. "There's a safe place nearby. You can rest there." Leary followed him, but her steps were slow. She kept looking around, afraid her family might return, or worse, that the creature might come back. Each time she looked scared, Jonas slowed down for her. As they walked through the dim streets, Leary gathered the courage to speak again. "Why? Why did you help me?" she asked. Jonas looked at her. "Because it was the right thing to do." "But you do not know me," she said. "I don't need to know you," he answered. "I just know you needed someone." Leary lowered her head. Her voice was small. "No one has ever said that before." Jonas didn't reply. He simply kept walking, guiding her through quieter streets, but neither of them knew that the shadows behind them were moving again. The creature had returned, and this time it was not alone. Jonas felt a cold shiver on the back of his neck. He stopped walking. Something was following them, and the real danger had only just begun. Jonas kept walking with Leary beside him, but the feeling of being watched did not go away. The streets were quieter now, but something cold seemed to move through the air. Leary felt it too. Her ears twitched, and she held Jonas's coat tighter around herself. "Jonas," she whispered, "they are coming." "Who?" he asked, lowering his voice. She pointed behind them with a shaking hand. "The dark ones. The creatures. They follow weak children." Jonas gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "Don't look back. We will keep walking slow and calm." Leary nodded, though her small legs trembled. She tried to match his steps. She wanted to be brave, but she had never been taught how. After a few minutes, Jonas led her into a small shipping yard with broken crates and half-lit lamps. He chose a hidden corner behind large metal containers. It was safer there. He stopped and crouched down beside her. "Leary," he said softly, I need to understand. Why were you alone there? What happened to your family? Leary looked down at her hands. Her fingers twisted together. She did not want to speak, but something in Jonas's gentle voice made her try. My family. They say I am weak, she whispered. I cannot run fast. I cannot lift heavy things. Other children can do everything better. Jonas listened quietly, letting her speak at her own pace. My clan believes every child must give something useful, she continued. If a child is slow or sick, they are a burden, so they left me. Her voice cracked. They said it is better for the clan if I disappear. Jonas felt anger rise inside him, slow, deep, and heavy. How could anyone abandon a child like this? Leary kept talking, not looking at him. I tried to be good, she whispered. I tried to smile. I tried to help. But every day they said I was nothing. Even my brother pushed me away. He said I made the family weak. A tear slid down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it with her sleeve, as if she wasn't allowed to cry. Jonas placed his coat gently around her shoulders again. Leary, listen to me, he said. You are not nothing. And you are not weak. She looked up at him, confused. But everyone says, they were wrong, Jonas said with firm, steady words. You survived alone. You held on even when they left you. That is strength. Leary blinked at him. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not once in her life. Jonas continued. You may not run fast or lift heavy things, but you are brave. You are still standing after everything they did. That takes more strength than they will ever understand. Slowly, like a small flame lighting inside her chest, Leary felt something new hope, but before she could answer, a metal crate behind them rattled. Jonas stood up fast, pulling Leary behind him. His eyes searched the shadows. A low growl came from the left, then another from the right. Leary clutched his coat. Jonas, more than one. There are many. Shadowy shapes moved between the broken containers. Their eyes glowed in the half-darkness. Jonas tightened his grip on the metal rod. We need to get out of here, he said. But where? Leary whispered. Jonas looked toward a large tunnel entrance nearby. It was dark, but it was the only path that did not have creatures blocking it. We run for that tunnel, he said. Stay right behind me. No matter what happens. Leary nodded, even as tears filled her eyes again. Jonas took her hand firmly. Ready? He whispered. I squeezed his hand. The creature stepped closer. Then Jonas shouted, Run! And the two of them sprinted into the darkness, one human and one abandoned girl. While the creatures chased them through the night, Jonas pulled Leary's hand as they ran toward the tunnel entrance. Their footsteps echoed loudly on the metal ground. Behind them, the creatures let out sharp, hungry cries. The sound bounced through the shipping yard like a warning. Leary struggled to keep up. Her short legs moved fast, but fear made her steps uneven. She almost fell twice, but Jonas pulled her back each time without stopping. Stay with me. He shouted, breathless, I'm trying. She cried softly, her voice shaking. The first creature leaped onto a crate near them, its long claws scraping the metal. Jonas tightened his grip on the metal rod. He knew he could not fight all of them. The only chance was to reach the tunnel. They reached the large entrance, an old transport path that had not been used in years. The lights inside were broken, leaving only darkness. Jonas hesitated for half a second, but the creatures were right behind them. In we go, he said, guiding Leary inside. The tunnel smelled old dust, rust, and cold air. Their echoes sounded louder inside, making it hard to know how far away the creatures were. Jonas held the torch high, but the light reached only a few feet. Leary clung to his coat. Jonas, they're coming in. I know, he whispered. Keep moving. He led her deeper into the tunnel. The ground was uneven, with old rails and broken metal scattered everywhere. Leary tripped, but Jonas caught her before she hit the floor. The creatures entered the tunnel. Their claws clicked on the metal ground. Their growls echoed through the dark, making it impossible to know how many were there. Jonas. "I'm scared," Leary whispered. "I'm here," Jonas answered, not slowing down. "I won't let them take you." She felt the truth in his voice. It gave her a tiny spark of strength. They reached an old service door on the side of the tunnel. Jonas pushed it gently. It opened with a loud metallic groan. Inside was a small maintenance room with old tools, wires, and dust-covered boxes. "Inside," Jonas said. "Quick." Leary rushed in. Jonas closed the door halfway, but left a small opening so he could watch the tunnel. The creatures moved closer. He could hear their claws on the metal. Their breathing sounded heavy, almost excited. Jonas held the metal rod ready. Leary sat behind him, her small hands pressed against her chest. "Jonas, why do they follow abandoned children?" Jonas didn't look back. "Because creatures like them hunt what is alone. What is weak?" "But I am weak," Leary said sadly. "No," Jonas said sharply. "You're not weak. You were harmed. That is different." Leary looked at his back, her eyes filling with emotion. No one had ever corrected her like that. No one ever defended her like this. The shadows in the tunnel moved closer. Jonas lifted his torch. One creature's face appeared in the dim light. It hissed. Jonas swung the metal rod with all his strength. The sound echoed as it struck the wall, just inches from the creature, which jumped back into the dark. "We can't stay here," he whispered. "They'll break in. How do we escape?" Leary asked. Jonas looked around quickly. His eyes landed on a vent in the corner of the room, small, but large enough for Leary. "You're going through there," he said. Leary shook her head fast. "No, I won't leave you. They will hurt you." Jonas kneeled in front of her. "Leary, listen. You need to get out. There's a ladder inside the vent that leads up to the city. If you go now, you can escape." Her tiny hands grabbed his. "I don't want to go without you." Jonas smiled softly, even in the danger. "I'm right behind you. I promise. But you must go first." A loud crash hit the door. The creatures were pushing it. Jonas pulled Leary toward the vent. "Go, Leary, now." She crawled inside, tears falling from her eyes. Jonas turned back toward the door. Lifting the metal rod again, the creatures roared, and the old service room shook as the monsters forced their way in. The door shook again as the creatures slammed into it. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Jonas stood in front of the half-broken door, metal rod raised, breath sharp and controlled. Inside the vent, Leary crawled forward, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Jonas, please come," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm right here," Jonas said, but he didn't move. His eyes stayed on the door. He needed to buy her more time. Another crash hit the metal. The old hinges bent. Jonas stepped back slightly, keeping his stance strong. The creatures hissed and growled, hungry and angry. "Come on. Keep crawling," he whispered under his breath. Leary forced herself forward through the small vent. The space was tight and cold. Her knees hurt as she crawled up the narrow passage. She reached a ladder and began climbing, her small hands trembling as she pulled herself upward. Back in the room, the door finally snapped off one hinge. Jonas braced himself. The first creature forced its head through the opening, its jaws wide and dripping. Jonas swung the metal rod hard. The rod hit the creature across the face, and it recoiled with a loud howl of pain. Jonas did not stop. He stepped forward, shouted, and struck again, pushing the creature back through the gap. Two more creatures hissed behind it. Jonas knew he could not fight them all. He didn't need to win. He just needed to survive long enough for Leary to escape. He grabbed a broken pipe from the floor and jammed it under the door handle to slow the door from falling completely. It gave him a few more seconds. But seconds mattered. "Please be safe, Leary," he whispered above him. Leary reached the top of the vent and pushed on the hatch. It did not move at first. She cried softly and pushed harder, using every bit of strength she had. Finally, the hatch opened with a loud clang. She crawled out into a dark upper walkway and looked back down the vent. "Jonas!" she called. "I'm here." Jonas shouted back, his voice echoing faintly, but she could also hear the creatures screaming. Claws hitting metal, she couldn't leave him. She climbed back down 2 steps, but stopped when she remembered Jonas's promise and his words. "I'm right behind you." She forced herself to listen. Jonas hit the door again, pushing the creatures back. But the door finally snapped free. 3 creatures rushed in at once. Jonas stepped back, raising the rod. 1 creature leaped. Jonas swung, hitting its leg, forcing it to the ground. But the second creature clawed toward him, and he barely dodged. He threw the torch onto the ground in front of them. The creatures hissed and backed away from the light, but they were too many, too close. Jonas ran to the vent opening. It was too small for him. He knew that the moment he first saw it. But he never told Leary. He looked up the vent. "Leary, go! Run as fast as you can." Her heart cracked. "Jonas, you're not coming?" Jonas smiled softly. "I will find another way out. I promise. But you have to go now. Don't look back." Leary shook her head, tears falling. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," Jonas said. "Not while I'm still standing." He turned and faced the creatures again. Leary cried harder and climbed up the ladder again. Every step heavy with fear. Jonas grabbed the rod with both hands and shouted at the creatures, forcing them back with loud echoes that shook the room. "Come on, you ugly things." He yelled. He fought with everything he had. Suddenly bright lights flashed from the tunnel behind the creatures. Heavy footsteps marched toward them. Voices shouted commands. It was the alien city guards. Jonas stood still, breathing hard. As the creatures fled into the dark. Guards surrounded him. Jonas raised his hand slowly. "Please," he said, exhausted. "Help the child. Her name is Leary." Jonas stood in the middle of the tunnel, breath heavy, bruises on his arms, and dust covering his clothes. The guards circled him with bright lights and long rifles. He raised his hand slowly, showing he was not a threat. One guard stepped forward. "Human," he said coldly. "You were seen fighting restricted creatures. What are you doing here?" Jonas pointed toward the vent. "There's a child. An abandoned girl. Her name is Leary. She needs help." The guards exchanged glances. Some looked confused, others annoyed. "Why do you protect a child that is not from your species?" One guard asked. Jonas stared at him. "Because she deserves protection. Because she was left to die." The guard frowned. "All abandoned children belong to the city. They are property of the district." Jonas felt anger rise. "She is not property. She is a child." Before the argument grew, another guard approached with a small device. "Sir, we found a young alien girl nearby. She was crying. Said she was with a human." Jonas felt relief. "Where is she?" "Safe," the guard replied. "For now." They led Jonas out of the tunnel and up metal stairs to a high walkway. There, under a bright lamp, Leary sat on the ground wrapped in Jonas's coat. Her face lit up the moment she saw him. "Jonas!" She cried and ran to him. He kneeled and caught her gently. She hugged him tightly, shaking with relief. Jonas placed his hand on her head. "You did well," he whispered. "You're safe." But their moment did not last long. A loud voice echoed across the walkway. "There she is! Our child!" Leary froze. Her family, her parents and older brother, pushed through the guards. Their clothes were clean and bright, showing high clan status. Their eyes were sharp and filled with anger, not sadness, not worry. Anger, Leary stepped back and hid behind Jonas. Her father pointed at her. "You, come here at once. Do not embarrass us in front of the guards." Jonas rose to his feet. "She doesn't want to go with you." Her mother scoffed. "She is our blood. You have no right to speak. You left her to die," Jonas said calmly. Her brother crossed his arms. "So what? A weak child brings shame to our house. We decided to remove the shame." Several guards whispered among themselves. The mother stepped forward. "Human, hand her over. We will take her back." Leary clutched Jonas's arm, shaking. "No, please no. They will hurt me again." Jonas placed his body between her and her family. "She's not going anywhere unless she wants to." Her father stepped forward, eyes full of cold pride. "You think a human can make decisions here? She belongs to us. She belongs to herself," Jonas said firmly. The walkway grew silent. Even the guards hesitated. Her father raised his voice. "Guard, remove this human." But the guards did not move. They had seen the fear in Leary's eyes. They had seen how she clung to Jonas. Something was not right, and they knew it. One guard finally said, "We must hear the child." All eyes turned to Leary. Her mother snapped, "Leary, come to us now." Leary shook harder. Her tiny hands dug into Jonas's coat sleeve. I don't want to go." Her father's face twisted with anger. "Ungrateful girl." Jonas stepped forward. "You cannot force her." Her brother shouted, "She is weak. She shames us." Jonas glared at him. "It is not weakness to be left behind. It is cruelty." The guards stepped between the family and the child. The leader guard turned to Leary. "Do you feel safe with your family?" Leary shook her head fast. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "No. Please don't make me go with them. They don't want me, they said. Said I should die." The guards murmured in shock. Jonas placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Her father yelled, "Lies! She twists words like all useless children." But this time, no one believed him. The guard leader raised a hand. "Enough. Child welfare rules apply. Until further review, the girl stays with the human." Leary gasped, covering her mouth as relief washed over her. Her family stared in disbelief as Jonas lifted Leary gently into his arms. For the first time in her life, an adult chose her. And for the first time in his life, Jonas felt like protecting her was his purpose. The walkway buzzed with whispers as the guards made their decision. Leary's family stood frozen, shocked that the city guards who normally obeyed clan orders refused to hand the girl over. Jonas held Leary gently. She buried her face against his chest, still crying softly. But for the first time, the tears were not from fear. They were from relief. The lead guard cleared his throat. "Human, you will take the child to the human embassy. They will review her case." Her father shouted, "This is an insult to our clan." But the guards ignored him. Jonas nodded and held Leary closer. "Let's go." They walked down the metal stairs and left the angry family behind. Leary looked over Jonas's shoulder once, just once. Her mother's cold eyes stared at her. Her brother glared with hate. Her father yelled something she couldn't hear. Leary turned her face away and held Jonas tighter. She was done with them forever. The human embassy was a tall silver tower, glowing with warm lights, so different from the cold streets where Leary had been abandoned. Inside, Jonas carried Leary to a soft chair. She sat curled up, still wrapped in his coat. A human officer brought warm tea for Jonas and a small bowl of sweet fruit for Leary. She stared at it, unsure if she was allowed to eat. "It's for you," Jonas said gently. Leary took one piece and tasted it. Her eyes widened. It was sweet, soft, warm. "I never had food like this," she whispered. Jonas sat beside her. "You'll get more. As much as you need." A human counselor knelt next to Leary. "Sweetie, we need to ask some questions. Just to make sure you are safe." Leary looked at Jonas, scared. Jonas smiled and placed his hand over hers. "I'm right here. You can answer." The counselor asked simple questions. "Do you want to go back to your family? Did they hurt you? Did they leave you on purpose? Were you scared?" Each time, Leary answered softly but honestly, "I don't want to go back. They said I am useless. They left me to die. I was very scared." The counselor nodded and wrote everything down. "Thank you, Leary. You were very brave." Leary blinked. "Brave me?" Jonas smiled. "Yes, you brave." Hours passed. Jonas stayed beside her the whole time. She slowly relaxed, her breathing calmer now. She watched humans walk through the embassy, laughing, working, smiling. Nothing here felt like her clan's home. Nothing here felt cold. At last, the counselor returned with an official paper. She looked at Jonas and Leary with a warm smile. The Alien Council reviewed the case. Due to abandonment and danger, Leary will be placed under human guardianship. Leary blinked. What does that mean?" "It means," Jonas said softly, "you get to stay with me. If you want." Leary covered her mouth with her hands as tears filled her eyes again, this time tears of pure joy. You want me?" she whispered. Jonas nodded. "Of course I do." She ran into his arms and hugged him tightly, her small fingers gripping his shirt, afraid this moment might disappear. "You gave me a second chance," she whispered. "No one ever gave me a chance before." Jonas closed his eyes and held her close. "You deserve 100 chances." Later that night, they walked toward the human shuttle dock. The ship hummed softly, lights shining like stars around it. Leary held Jonas's hand tightly, afraid to let go. "Jonas?" she asked quietly. "Yes?" "Where are we going?" "Someplace warm," he said with a gentle smile. "Someplace safe. Somewhere you will never be abandoned again." Leary looked up at him with wide glowing eyes. And can I stay with you?" Jonas kneeled in front of her and placed his hands on her shoulders. "You're family now," he said. "If you want to stay with me, I will protect you. Always." Leary's heart felt full for the first time in her life. She nodded, tears of happiness rolling down her cheeks. "I want to stay." Jonas lifted her into his arms and carried her onto the ship. The door closed behind them. The engines hummed. The lights grew brighter. And as the shuttle rose toward the stars, Leary whispered 3 soft words she had never said to anyone before. "Thank you." Jonas. Her second chance had finally begun.